This is the car that Magnum PI should always have been driving. Now, before you've even set off, you just have to say, is this not just the most perfect, beautiful car in the world? Obviously, it's got echoes of the Stratos, both in being mid-engined, in the wheels, which are the same. There's basic wedge shape, more or less, which is quite similar. So there is some lineage there, but it just, even the standard 308s look pretty amazing. And this just looks absolutely breathtaking. Hello everybody, welcome to number 27, and what a privilege I have today because I'm going to be doing a video on this car, on this very car, and I absolutely love it already. I think it's one of the prettiest cars I've ever seen. I love everything about it. I mean, the 308s in any case are some of the prettiest cars in the world, and this just takes the biscuit. I mean, with the flared rear arches and with those incredible Campagnolo wheels, it's just perfect. So many people don't realise this, but Ferraris have actually done a bit of rallying, mainly through the 308. From 1973 onwards, Ferrari withdrew any official race support for anything apart from Formula One. One of the dealerships in Italy, in Padova, called Michelotto, decided that they were going to develop the 308 for rallying. So Michelotto has since become synonymous with racing Ferraris, but in actual fact it was the 308 with which they started all of that off. Now, in order to prepare it for a rally car, they did a number of things. They reinforced the chassis. They used a number of lightweight panels around the car, including the bonnet, the engine cover, the arches. They used perspex windows. They uprated the suspension. They changed the brakes to, I think it was AP even at the time, AP racing brakes. And of course, they completely overhauled the engine. It was only detailed changes to the engine they did, things like changing the porting, balancing the crankshaft and a few other bits, but that basically upped the power to 280 horsepower. Although I do suspect that 280 horsepower is a bit more genuine than the 250 that factory declared for the standard road cars. The race cars were a useful 200 kilos lighter than the standard cars. With the power, the wider stance and everything else, did make them quite effective. And in Italian and French rallies in the late 70s, they actually did pretty well. But there is only one occasion in which this Group 4 Michelotto rally car did anything in the World Rally Championship, and that was in 1982 with a French driver, Andrew, where he got runner-up position, so second in the World Rally stage in Corsica. After that though, there was the Lancias that were sort of had space frame chassis, the Audis and so on that were sort of kind of custom built for the rallying, and so Michelotto decided to try and go for a Group B version, which eventually apparently led to some of the development work that went into the GTO. Now, this particular car obviously is a replica. It belongs to Phil, who works at QV in London, who have helped me out many times and who are experts on 308s. He's been good enough to let me out in it today. It is a replica, but he didn't actually want to do something which was absolutely 100% faithful to the original, because he wanted something that would be remotely usable on the road and also not quite as expensive as if you were to follow all the rules to make a car that was still maybe eligible for some of the more modern rally, classic rally racing and so on. So this does have some fundamental differences. It does have the Group 4 arches, and it does have quite a lot of detailing from the Group 4 car, including the dashboard, the way the interior is set out. But crucially, there is a big difference. The Group 4 car obviously had to use the original 308 engine with some light modifications. This particular car actually uses quite a trick lump. It is a 328 lump, so it's a 4-valve engine, and it's a 3.2 as opposed to the 3 litre that the 308 normally came with. And not just that, but it is running a 355 intake manifolds and OZUM programmable ECU. I'm going to have to phone Phil actually and find out what power it's putting out, but it will be more than the original Group 4 cars ever had. It was built up from a bare shell, and you can see some of the detailing. It's got a full cage, it's got obviously racing seats, and these are quite modern seats. This is actually the same as the normal Group 4 dash, but it's been lined because Phil just preferred the look of it like that rather than the bare aluminium that the race cars would have had at the time. The suspension is fully adjustable. It's got uprated bushings, but it's not got solid bushings, which the race cars did have, so it just makes it a bit easier to live with this on the road. It's got Perspex windows all round, as well as the interior, the Group 4 arches, the dash and so on. This also has the Group 4 wheels, these amazing Campagnolos, which look absolutely fabulous, and I believe they must be magnesium, although I don't know for sure, but I believe they are the original wheels, not replicas or anything like that. And with 308s normally, I do not like aftermarket wheels. These are the only wheels I've seen which you think, wow, those do look pretty special. Shall we see what it's like to drive? So, getting in isn't the best thing, and once you're in, things for me don't particularly improve, it has to be said. So let's get it started. Now it has it's not the most practical thing. It has 4-point, I think, harnesses. Ah, finally. Okay, so as I said, it has 4-point harnesses. I have a perfect sight line straight into the roll bar, and so it's not really the ideal car in many ways, and I am in the worst place possible. I am in the wilds of Surrey, so terrible roads, full of people. So I'm not going to be able to give you the best sort of write-up on this, but it's going to give you an idea on what it is like to drive. Now for me, it is torture, to be honest, because I am bent in two. I can't use the indicator because my leg gets in the way. These are basically like race tyres on this car, so they don't have a lot of grip really, because you have to get them up to temperature, and they're never going to get up to temperature on the road at these speeds. But in many ways it's actually pretty good, pretty civilized. So the engine's really tractable. If it wasn't for that snatchy throttle, and that's just the issue with that, it's just the mechanism. I can feel it, there's some stickiness there. But if it wasn't for that, the engine would be incredibly tractable, very similar. It's not that loud, so it did have a louder exhaust before, but it was so loud that they went with this, which to me sounds almost road spec, to be quite honest. It really doesn't sound that different. Gearbox is again from a 328, so it's pressure fed, so you can take extra power compared to the 308 lumps, and it is quite direct. One of the things that I have noticed is that the steering, it feels really good in the sense that it's got just the right weighing, the right delicacy, but it's got that sharpness and that precision which is lacking in my own car, or has been up until now. Absolutely love the steering on this. You know, and it does have a bit of a race car feel to it, but it's not too extreme. And of course, driving around here, there's only so much you can do. It does take some getting used to, this car, I can tell you. It feels light though. Now again, it might just be a question that it needs to be set up, but one of the things that I love most about my own car is the gearbox. It's just perfect. This isn't quite as good. There's actually a little bit of play in it. It probably is just a question of getting it set up. Throttle bodies sound nice, but oh so different from my Webers. I have to say, driving this does make me glad that I've got a carved car, because it gives it so much personality. Actually quite linear. It does pull more as it goes up, but it feels like it's got a really flat torque curve. There doesn't seem to be like any particular spikes in power. And obviously, if you look around where you're sitting and everything, it is very much race car. It does have that feel about it. It's not something that you would, I don't know, you would have to make some changes to this to make it drive on the road. There's a couple of little rough edges to do, which I know Phil is going to do. And then aside from that, the seating position would have to be altered. Apparently the floor can be cut and it can be lowered. I am reasonably tall, so it's particularly difficult for me, but I think unless you are quite short, you're not going to get on with this particularly. And I think the angle of the seat can be changed a little bit as well. It is extremely cramped, not comfortable. It would be amazing if I could take it on a nice road in Oxford, but around here in Surrey, it's just, you know, it's difficult to drive, mainly because I'm so sort of hemmed into it. Still, I have to say, it is a car that I would absolutely love to be able to have. I would love it. Now the problem is Phil has built it, and like so many of these projects, you build it and then you don't end up using it. It's a bit of a strange car because it would need some work to be enjoyable on the road, and yet obviously with COVID and so on, there haven't been many opportunities for track days or anything like that, so I think he's tinkering in his mind with the idea of maybe selling it on. If you're interested, send him an email at QV in London, but please only if you're genuinely interested. Don't send any time-wasting emails about how much it is or any of that sort of stuff. But I think it's just, there's so much potential here, and it really, the way it turns and the way it goes is the way I feel my own, you know, that's what I like my own 308 to be like. and it's some way off from that, especially since it's not moving. But oh, how nice to be in a car, in a Ferrari, that actually goes, rather than being in the back of it trying to take bits off it, which has been the experience with mine for the last sort of few months. I might have to get Phil to take it up to Oxford, because I would love to drive it on a proper road. This just, you know, this cannot give it justice. It just can't. The steering really is fantastic, which just makes me wonder why the normal 308 steering isn't quite as good as this. I'll have to ask Phil what setup he's using, but I think this is just pretty standard. God, it's so hard to use the throttle smoothly. But it's a real riot. Get it on the right road, and what an incredible car. A privilege, and really glad that I drove it. Thank you all so much for watching. As always, please do subscribe. Please follow me on Instagram. That's the best way if you need to send me any messages. And I really look forward to seeing you for the next one.